do you think of Apple's entry into the textbook space? That just happened recently. Is that going to make a big deal? How do you see it playing out?
Well, so I think it's big for the industry, but I'd also say that Apple, for us, has been in the industry for some time, and they've had a keen focus on the education market. For VitalSource in particular, we've been, seeing a significant portion of our users actually running on either Macs or on iOS for some time. Certainly, there are a number of e-text providers already leveraging both platforms as well. They come in with a number of different angles, right? So they announce several things at one time. The iBooks enhancement certainly expected, a needed step to support the rich content layouts and interactivity that the textbook market really is going to require. iBooks authoring to help facilitate, teachers, faculty providing some of their own content. We certainly need more tools to help facilitate easier deployment, if you will, of the rich media kinds of content. We see that very much like much of the market has as parallel, say, to GarageBand. We don't see it necessarily as a type tool that the traditional higher ed or K-12 publishers are going to use to create their content. The pricing models are interesting, maybe not as dramatically different as maybe appears, but certainly we think that's an important part of it as well, where they're sort of pricing per student use at a lower price point. But in aggregate, that really doesn't appear to be a total price point shift. It's really more of a model change in the timing than really the aggregate dollars.
Right.
So, but I think it's also just brings a lot, more attention to the space. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of change happening within the textbook market, and we welcome Apple's entrance, and I think it brings a lot of attention to what's going on in the exciting space of digital textbooks.
Yeah. Now, who are the change agents in the textbook space? Who can really make things different? Great
question. I mean, one of the things that we're increasingly seeing is the beginnings of maybe even some consolidation of purchasing power. And so if you think traditionally, the market has been very fragmented in that regard. You have faculty members, particularly in the higher ed space, making decisions on the textbooks that are going to be used. But we're beginning to see that change. We've seen it ourselves at VitalSource quite a bit in the proprietary market, the for-profit schools in particular, where they will begin to make centralized decisions about what textbooks and materials should be used in courses. So that's a significant part now of the market. We're beginning to see an increased number of more traditional institutions behave in a similar manner. So on the institutional side, we're beginning to see traction in more consolidation of the textbook decision process and the negotiation process with the publishers and so forth. Now we're also, I think, going to see with people like Apple, Amazon, some of the other very large players who are pursuing device strategies and so forth, begin to influence pricing, much as they did in the trade space. So I think we're really seeing this consolidation of the decision making, and those are going to end up being, they're going to have the power to be change agents.
Sure. So last question for you, and it's kind of a big question. I won't hold you to this, right?
Okay.
But so apps tend to be more interactive. Ebooks tend to be, and this is putting it at a baseline, but more of a digital representation of the print version. How do you see apps and ebooks coexisting and evolving over the next few years, particularly in the textbook space?
So I think I understand your question. Not sure I completely agree with the distinction there. Certainly today, we've seen a tremendous volume of textbooks that are really, we often call it paper under glass.
Yeah,
the content was prepared print first, migrating to digital. So can we take what was originally designed for print, put it on the computer, put it on a tablet, put it on a mobile device, and make it available? And you get some enhancements over the print edition there. But I think what you're really suggesting is that as we move forward with apps and digital first publishing for textbook content, things are going to change quite a bit. So we're beginning to see a lot more work on adaptive learning models, interactivity, rich media, embedded assessments. All of that certainly But the distinction is going to be tough between apps and ebooks, if you will, largely because the ability with EPUB 3, with HTML5, you begin to get to a point where the apps themselves are actually embedded within the content. So that's why I say it's an odd question in that regard, right. In that I think it's going to be tough to see. You begin to see the publisher able to embed applications within the content, so they become the same.
Right. Well, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Matt.